Welcome to the Mystery Archive. This is the home of forgotten stories, unexplained events, and, well, the strangest anomalies history left behind. The lure of the unknown Dyatlov's last expedition. 65 years after 9 experienced hikers died under bizarre circumstances in Russia's Ural Mountains, the Dyatlov Pass incident continues to spawn theories ranging from secret military tests to alien encounters. Yet the most compelling explanation requires no external conspiracy at all, just a terrifying convergence of natural forces and the human brain's catastrophic failure under extreme stress. On February 1st, 1959, Igor Dyatlov led a group of 8 fellow hikers and 1 additional member into the northern Urals for what should have been a challenging but manageable winter expedition. These weren't novices stumbling into danger. They were seasoned trekkers, physically fit university students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnical Institute who had earned the highest Soviet hiking certification. They carried proper equipment, maintained careful route documentation, and followed established safety protocols. Nothing in their preparation suggested the catastrophic outcome that awaited them on the slopes of Kholat Syakhl, a name that translates chillingly to Dead Mountain. The expedition's ambition was straightforward: reach Otorten Mountain through winter conditions, document their journey, and return with another successful trek under their belts. The landscape they entered was unforgiving by design: open tundra, exposed ridges, and temperatures that plummeted to -30 degrees Celsius, with wind chill pushing conditions even more extreme. On the evening of February 1st, the group pitched their tent on an exposed slope, cutting into accumulated snow to create a level platform. This decision, made with their extensive experience, would set in motion a chain of events that modern science has only recently begun to fully explain. What emerged wasn't a single catastrophic moment, but a cascade of natural phenomena that transformed capable mountaineers into confused, dying wanderers in the span of hours. The trigger when mountains move in silence. Recent scientific analysis has revealed what likely initiated the tragedy, and it wasn't mysterious lights or military weapons. In 2019, Russian investigators reopened the case and proposed a theory that researchers at the Swiss Federal Institute for Snow and Avalanche Research would later model and publish in a peer-reviewed journal. The evidence points to a delayed slab avalanche, not the dramatic, thundering wall of snow from disaster movies, but something far more insidious. When the hikers cut their platform into the slope, they disrupted the snow's structural integrity. Strong katabatic winds that night deposited additional snow, gradually building pressure on an already compromised slope. Hours after they settled in for the night, possibly while they slept, a section of compacted snow, perhaps 9 feet deep, broke loose and slid onto the tent. This wasn't enough snow to bury them alive or immediately kill them, but it was sufficient to create crushing pressure, damage the tent structure, and cause significant injuries to several hikers. The autopsy reports documented severe thorax trauma and skull fractures in some victims, injuries far too substantial to explain through simple falls, but actually consistent with the impact of a moving snow slab. More crucially, this sudden violent awakening in darkness created immediate panic. The tent was collapsing around them, snow was pressing down, and, in the total disorientation of being jolted from sleep, the brain's threat assessment systems went into overdrive. They couldn't determine if more snow was coming, if the entire slope was unstable, or if they were moments away from complete burial. In that context, cutting through the tent made sense. It offered the fastest escape from what their adrenaline-flooded brains interpreted as imminent death. The group evacuated rapidly, and here's where the tragedy's second phase began. In their panic to escape potential burial, they left behind the warm clothing and equipment that could have saved their lives. This wasn't irrational, given the immediate perceived threat. People fleeing a building fire don't stop to grab coats either. The problem was that once they were outside in temperatures around -30 degrees Celsius, inadequately dressed and without shelter, they had entered a race against time that they simply couldn't win. The nearest tree line where they might find materials to build fire or create a windbreak lay over a kilometre downslope. They began moving through the darkness, leaving the damaged tent behind, and as they descended, extreme cold began its systematic assault on their bodies and minds. Hypothermia's cruel deception, the mind under siege, was now underway. The human body's response to dangerous cold follows a predictable cascade that starts subtly and ends catastrophically. Initial hypothermia announces itself through violent shivering as muscles generate heat through rapid contraction. This phase feels manageable, even controllable, which makes it particularly dangerous. The brain begins diverting blood from extremities to protect core organs, and this redistribution brings cognitive changes that victims often mistake for simple fatigue or stress. Judgment becomes impaired not through obvious confusion, but through a gradual erosion of decision-making quality that feels normal from inside the deteriorating mind. A person in early hypothermia might choose to rest when they should keep moving, or decide that removing a glove to adjust equipment seems reasonable when it actually accelerates heat loss. These aren't dramatic errors, they're subtle miscalculations that compound into crisis. As core temperature drops below 35 degrees Celsius, the brain enters a state of profound malfunction that produces one of hypothermia's most disturbing symptoms: paradoxical undressing. This phenomenon occurs in between 20 and 50% of severe hypothermia deaths, and victims strip off their clothing in sub-freezing temperatures, a behavior so counterintuitive that it fueled decades of speculation about the Dyatlov incident. The scientific explanation reveals the brain's terrible vulnerability to temperature stress. As hypothermia progresses, the muscles responsible for constricting blood vessels become exhausted and suddenly relax, causing a rush of blood back to the extremities. This creates an intense sensation of heat, a false signal that convinces the dying brain the body is overheating. Another proposed mechanism involves the hypothalamus, which regulates body temperature, malfunctioning and sending incorrect temperature readings. Regardless of the exact pathway, the result is identical. A person who feels genuinely, overwhelmingly hot and responds by removing the very protection keeping them alive. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational thought and impulse control, has already been compromised by reduced blood flow and oxygen. Meanwhile, the amygdala, which processes basic survival instincts and fear responses, takes over decision-making. The result is action driven by primitive impulses rather than reasoned analysis. If this exploration into the real forces behind famous mysteries resonated with you, subscribe to the Mystery Archive. We examine the forgotten stories and unexplained events that shaped history, digging past sensational theories to uncover the genuine science and evidence at work. Share this investigation with anyone who values evidence-based examination of history's most puzzling incidents, and join us as we continue separating fact from fiction in the mysteries that continue to fascinate us.